14 weeks, no tracking macros, no tracking scale weight, 7.1 kilos down. Ladies and gents, how are we? Fresh back from Mykonos. If you missed the vlog, it's up here. One of my best, in my opinion. The intro in particular, for me, exceptional. Sexy beast inspired. So if you've not seen it, then do check it out. In today's video, I want to talk about the lead up to that holiday and what I did to get into shape. I think it's super important that these sorts of videos, it requires nuance. It's the in thing to do nowadays, which is to say, you know, I did this and did it by not doing much. You know, it's very similar to people flexing on maybe getting into shape, eating just McDonald's. It appeals to uneducated folk because they see someone get in shape and think, how's he eating McDonald's and going to shape? Not really understanding calorie deficit. So when we do have these discussions about getting into shape or gaining muscle without doing the norm, which is to track your metrics and your data, then we must say, look, that individual, myself as an example, has had years of competing in bodybuilding for about 10 years. I went through very rigorous off seasons and competition preps, and I've learned, I understand food, I understand my body really well. So for someone that's just starting out, I think it is important that you lay that foundation of understanding macros, of utilizing things like MyFitnessPal, potentially using online calculators whereby you can start to understand what your BMR is, what your maintenance calories is, using things like tracking of daily scale weight to see, because not always, as we've spoken before, not always does what the calculator online churn out be accurate to what works for you. I've had it in the past with clients that are heavy and we just simply require a larger calorie deficit because there's issues with their metabolism. So it's really important as lifters, as new bodybuilders, anyone that's interested in physique development, that you do the hard graft. Now, if you are an overweight person and you eat better, eat less food than you're currently consuming, and you move, you are going to lose body fat. So there is an argument there where you might say, okay, well, I don't necessarily want to track. I've been eating poor for a long time. If I just eat 3 whole meals per day and move my body and train, am I going to lose weight? Absolutely. But I think everyone at some point throughout their lifting, their physique development journey, career should be utilizing things like MyFitnessPal and just understanding macronutrients, the incorporation of protein and fat-based meals, how certain foods impact their mood, their energy, as an example. So back to myself, last 14 weeks, I said at the very beginning of that diet, I don't want to track. I've done it for long enough now. I've done holiday preps in the past, you know, contest prep, then into Marbella and Ibiza, where I've religiously tracked, and I didn't really want to. You know, I look at my housemate here, Mr. Josh Kennedy, who gets into shape by just simply leveraging with his running and eating a bit better. And I was like, I want to run a bit more. I want to take my weekly mileage up a little bit. Let's lean into that. Let's see how my body responds, running more, eating clean, and it works. So the way in which I did it, and we can run through how the last 14 weeks, my initial scale weight was, I think, March 24th, 88.6. And just before I left, jumped on the scales, 81.5. I only tracked once. So I tracked at the beginning of the diet and at the end of the diet, and we lost 7.1 kilos. No DEXA scan, so I don't know how much muscle I may have lost, but I think if you are training hard, eating enough protein throughout the day, through at least 3 meals, and sleeping well, you can do a pretty good job at retaining tissue. During dieting phases, training must be viewed as an insurance policy. If you can train 3 to 4 sessions per week at a good level of intensity, then you've got a pretty good job at making sure that you can retain some muscle. You pair that with eating some consistent, good, whole sources of protein throughout the day, 3 times per day, then you can probably do a pretty good job at holding on to some muscle. So who knows, there may have been a little bit of muscle loss, but we won't know for certain. But 7.1 key down. Got some visuals on the screen here comparing what I looked like in March to my most recent update. Things have a little bit relaxed since holiday, so I need to get back on the wagon. I've not been to the gym yet. Motivation's dipped off a little bit. The weather in the UK at the moment is a nightmare. Can't sleep, going to bed about 12 and waking up at 5, so it's horrific. And I've got Silverstone this weekend, so you know what it's like. Post-holiday, you're a little bit slack. I've now got Silverstone this weekend, so I think off the back of Silverstone, we get back into a little bit of a deficit. May start tracking again just for some more YouTube videos. So the way in which I structured my nutrition to begin with was to have carbohydrates pretty much every single meal. So my breakfast would maybe consist of some regular potato with some salmon and some egg whites. And then my post-workout will be some sweet potato. And then for dinner, it may be some pasta. So all I really did with my nutrition is start to take away some carbohydrates and start to take some fats when I feel like I needed to. If we're not tracking scale weight, we're not tracking macros, what we're leveraging with here is the visuals, how I'm looking in the mirror. So I wouldn't every single day look at the mirror and see how I'm looking. Maybe every fortnight or each week, I just have a little look and think, I'm starting to gauge, I'm getting a little bit leaner here. My chest and delts respond very quickly. They always have done, and they start to get leaner. So I start to then think, okay, this is enough of a deficit for me. So the simple case of nutrition was looking at taking some fats away potentially. If I'm having a lot of nut butters or peanut butters or nuts, just taking them away. And then I'm looking at taking some carbohydrates down. So I went from 3 meals, which consisted of carbohydrates, to then 2. I'm not a huge eater post-workout. I can always get away with just a protein and fat meal. So a pro-fat meal is just protein source and some fats. So it may be the fats coming from a fattier cut of fish or meat, and then we've got a whole host of veg. So we can go like Mediterranean, Greek style, get some feta cheese in there if you wanted to, and just get some courgettes, tomatoes, red onions. You could go Chinese stir fry style without the noodles or rice. You could get a big pack of veg with some nice sauce and a lean protein source. So I started to take a carbohydrate meal away. And then towards the very end, I took another carbohydrate meal away. So I only had carbohydrates pre-workout. And then what I started to do was I made a shift. So I then started to train fasted. So I'd wake up, electrolytes, I'd train fasted. I'd have a protein and fat post-workout meal. I'd have lunch, protein and fat. And then in the evening, I'd then have my carbohydrates. So again, referencing that kind of bodybuilding experience that I've had, I know when I need to go aggressive. I think if I were to guess, I'd probably towards the back end of that dieting phase been around about 15 to 1600 calories, which is a fairly sizable deficit for someone of my size. But what's quite nice about not tracking is it's almost like you're not aware of that intake of food. I'm just looking at food as fuel I'm eating, and I'm satiated. Whereas I think psychologically, if I knew that I was eating 1500 calories a day, I'd panic a little bit. But I was just looking at food as I'm having some eggs and some fruit here, I'm having some chicken, I'm having some veg, I'm having some pasta or some rice for dinner. And that was the most noticeable thing about it, is the lack of understanding of how many calories you're eating, I think plays into that deficit really nicely. Now, for running, I started at 10K per week. I gradually increased that to about 25K per week, and then I did a few weeks about 30 kilometers per week, which is a lot for me. With Strava, it obviously tracks your heart rate, and it starts to churn out the amount of calories you're burning. So I was burning a lot of calories during those 25 to 30K weeks. I think I was burning around about 2,000 to 2,500 calories on the runs per week. So we can see pretty sizable amount of calories expended. Running, for me, there's so much content nowadays where coaches sort of like get off on saying running, that's poor for fat loss. It's like, what do you mean? You're moving your body. You have a higher heart rate. The amount of calories that I can burn and churn through from like a 5K compared to that of a Stairmaster, I'd have to be on a Stairmaster for like 40, 45 minutes. Now, a lot of my clients that I work with now, we have started to lean more into running. So if we've got them on 4 to 5 cardio sessions, we might say, okay, 2 to 3 of those do a run. And what they're noticing is they're like, Tom, in 25 minutes, I burnt the same amount of calories as I was churning out on a 40, 45 minute Stairmaster session. They're getting fitter, they're getting stronger. They're getting cardiovascularly stronger as well. So this concept that running is poor for fat loss, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's such a futile statement to make. I think there's so many benefits to running. So we had a gradual decrease of food. We had a gradual increase in output. My training sessions, I trained 3 sessions per week, all full body. I think I've done a video before, so it will be pinned up here. And intensities there. The only movements that had a little bit left in the tank were my leg movements. So any sort of squat, thrust patterns, I had a couple of reps RAR. A lot of my other movements tended to be quite close to failure. I think now we look at the literature. If you're training within close proximity to failure, 2-3 RAR, you should be okay. That also requires nuance in the sense that if you're a newbie individual, you don't quite know and can't quite gauge what true training intensity and failure is. So you need to go through that period of having training partners and pushing yourself really hard and be that bodybuilder, and then you can start to gauge reps in reserve. So for the vast majority of people, when we do start to coach them, it's always saying, let's train to failure. We take their form feedback and we can see, you know, if I see someone do 8 reps and then they just stop, I'm like, that set wasn't intense enough. So we can make that argument of keeping a few reps in reserve here, but 3 full body sessions for me was enough. On top of my runs, which I was doing about 3 to 4 during that running block, I actually got a 5K PB, which I was really proud of. That was good fun. Felt pretty beaten up after it, but needless to say, it was a nice little running block for me. So there's not much to really talk about, ladies and gents. It was just a simple case of eating good food and training hard and sleeping well and running, and the results occurred. As things got a little bit more intense in terms of the aggression of the diet, implementing some form of intermittent fast is always going to be your best friend. So I got very good at, and I'm also very good at it, again, using my experience as a bodybuilder. I can diet. I can make that switch if I want to lose some body fat. Simple case of me of waking up, getting some form of cardio or training done, coming back home, having a black coffee, doing some work, having a bit of nicotine here, suppress that appetite up until about 1, break that fast with not a huge amount of food, have some more food at 3, and then I can have all of my carbohydrates again for the evening. What we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit more of a detailed video, a bit more of an educational, informative video so that you can use that for yourself. But I just wanted to discuss how my 14 weeks went with this fat loss phase. Thoroughly enjoyed it. As someone that has competed and done all of that stuff, the tracking, and sometimes we're a little bit like, you know what, I'm not really down to do that. Not anymore. There may be periods of time in my life where I want to go all in again. Went to a client photo shoot the other day, and I was a little part of me was like, I wouldn't mind taking myself for a photo shoot prep at some point next year. So we'll see. But just a quick wrap up, ladies and gents, to briefly describe how that 14-week dieting phase went for me. Really enjoyable, loved it. But as I said, these videos do require nuance. We need to tell people that a lot of people that are doing them have experience, they've competed, they've also got muscle. Like, they've built some muscle, they've built density, they've built years in the gym, which is what I've done. You may not think it because I sometimes get you're on gear. Yeah, man, I've been on gear. I've been the bodybuilder. Just calm down, you know. I used to win shows, so it's all good. But ladies and gents, that's all from me. Like I said, we'll do a little bit more of an in-depth educational video, a bit more editing going on, and that'll be up very, very soon. But enjoy Silverstone this weekend. I'm very excited. First F1 event. Come on, the Verstappen. Thank you, good night, and much love.
Show my love for you.